At 14:27 local time, the forward air search array on the carrier shifts modes. No alarm, no announcement. Just a subtle change in tone across the circuit. On the flight deck, a yellow shirt pauses mid-step. A tow tractor idles. The ocean is calm, the horizon clean. Nothing looks wrong until the first track drops below 1,000 feet. In the Combat Information Center, the altitude readout tightens. 700 feet. Speed climbing. Bearing steady. 2 fast-moving contacts. Closing from the southwest. Confirm profile. The answer comes without urgency. Fixed wing. High speed. Military. Above deck, the wind changes. Not weather, pressure. A low, distant growl carries across the bow. Thin at first, then sharper. Jet noise, compressed and directional, cutting through the usual carrier sounds. The deck officer raises one hand, open palm, frees non-essential movement. No one asks why. The radar plot updates again. The lead contact drops lower, 500 feet now. That is not a transit altitude. That is a statement. On the island, cameras slew automatically. Long lenses tracking empty sky that suddenly isn't empty anymore. The shape resolves fast. Delta wings, single engine intake, angular tail. An F-16 Fighting Falcon, coming in hot and low, nose slightly down. Riding ground effect over open water. A second contact follows, offset to the right, tighter spacing than standard formation. They are not lost. They are not wandering. They are lining up. Inside CIC, the tactical display fills with clean data. Speed, aspect, rate of descent, no weapons release indications, no missile cues. Just velocity and intent. Altitude check, 400 feet and descending. On the flight deck, tie-down crews instinctively lean into the wind as the first shock wave ripples the air. The jet is still miles out, but the pressure front arrives early. Flattening sound, making the world feel briefly hollow. No sirens, no shouted orders. The carrier does not change course. That matters. The F-16 drops again, 300 feet. At that height, there is no margin, no room for error. Any mechanical fault becomes fatal. Any misjudgment becomes irreversible. This is not a flyby. This is a dive. The jet's afterburner flares briefly. A flash of orange against blue, and then cuts. The pilot wants speed without the signature. He wants proximity without escalation. On the bridge, no one moves toward the rails. Eyes stay forward, hands stay on instruments. Second contact maintaining separation. Copy. The carrier's own aircraft remain parked. Wings folded, engines silent, no scramble, no launch cycle initiated. The message is deliberate. We are not reacting. The jet closes the final miles in seconds. Cameras now capture every detail. Panel lines, underwing pylons, heat shimmer off the exhaust. The aircraft is old, but the maneuver is aggressive. Textbook low-altitude intimidation. The F-16 levels off just above the wave tops, skimming the surface. 200 feet, maybe less. The pilot holds it there, riding the edge, forcing everyone watching to calculate the same thing at the same time. If he pulls up now, it's theater. If he doesn't, it's something else. The carrier's bow cuts cleanly through the water, steady at speed, refusing to give the jet a reaction point. No turn, no pitch, no visible response. Inside CIC, recording systems run continuously. Every radar sweep, every frequency spike, every micro-adjustment in the aircraft's flight control surfaces. Nothing is wasted. The jet crosses the carrier's forward arc, close enough that deck crews can see the canopy flash in the sun. Close enough that the noise hits like a physical force, slamming into steel and skin at the same time. For a fraction of a second, the shadow of the aircraft slides across the flight deck. Then it's past. The second F-16 follows, slightly higher, slightly wider, as if watching for reaction. It gets none. No warnings are issued. No weapons track visibly. No flares. No lights. Just silence. And data. As the jets pull ahead and begin a shallow climb, the carrier continues on her original heading, unchanged. The ocean closes behind them. The sky returns to empty blue. In CIC, the tracks stretch out, still fast, still close, but no longer descending. The first move has been made. No shots fired, no words exchanged. Only intent logged and time-stamped as the aircraft disappear forward, and whatever comes next begins to take shape. At 14:29 local time, the carrier's internal posture shifts. Not upward, not outward, but inward. No alarms, no change on the flight deck. Just a quiet recalibration across systems that have done this before. In the Combat Information Center, the air picture stabilizes. The two fast movers are now ahead of the ship, still low, still fast, but no longer descending. Their tracks are clean, predictable. That matters too. Maintain continuous track. Tracking solid. No one says the word threat. It isn't needed. The ship's sensors widen their aperture, not to chase the aircraft, but to listen. Radar returns are parsed, separated from clutter. Electronic support measures begin logging emissions, weak, intermittent, almost casual. Search modes, not fire control. Curious, probing. On the bridge, the captain doesn't lean forward. He doesn't raise his voice. His posture stays exactly the same. That is also a message. Below deck, systems synchronize. Not weapons, data. Time stamps align. Video feeds from deck cameras, mast-mounted optics, and long-range sensors are routed to the same clock. Everything that happens from this point forward will exist in sequence. Above, the F-16s adjust formation. The lead aircraft eases slightly left. The wingman drifts wider, increasing lateral separation. It's a subtle move, but it changes geometry. It creates options. Inside CIC, that change is noticed instantly. Second contact widening, aspect changing. Copy. The carrier does not respond in kind. No course correction, no speed change. The ship remains a constant. 45,000 tons of predictability moving through open water. That, too, is deliberate. On the flight deck, activity resumes at a reduced pace. A few steps here, a hand signal there. The deck officer lowers his arm. Non-essential movement remains paused, but the deck does not look frozen. It looks controlled. The aircraft overhead are still close enough to be heard, but their sound is thinning, the pressure has passed. What remains is observation. In CIC, the data deepens. The F-16's radar sweeps brush the ship intermittently. Low power, short duration. Enough to paint, not enough to lock. The electronic warfare console notes it without comment. Emissions logged. No one reacts outwardly. Logging is the reaction. The aircraft's altitude creeps upward. 400 feet, then 5. Still low. Still intentional. but no longer pressing. This is the window where mistakes happen. The carrier does nothing to force one. Instead, internal communications tighten. Fewer words, shorter phrases, standardized language. No speculation. Maintain ROE. Rules of engagement are not debated in moments like this. They are recalled, line by line, from memory. Warn, record. Do not escalate unless escalation is forced upon you. The ship's defensive systems remain passive. No visible tracking radars swing. No missile hatches move. Nothing that could be misread as preparation. That restraint is not hesitation. It is discipline. The F-16s begin a shallow arc to starboard, paralleling the carrier's track at distance now measured in miles instead of meters. The maneuver suggests a check. Are we being followed? Are we being mirrored? They are not. The carrier holds course, the ultimate refusal to play. Inside CIC, analysts watch the aircraft's behavior rather than their position. Control inputs, rate of climb, throttle changes, small things that reveal stress, confidence, or calculation. The pilots are skilled, that is clear. The maneuvering is smooth, but smooth does not mean neutral. At 14:33, the lead aircraft briefly increases power, then pulls back. A pulse, a test. The ship's sensors register the thermal spike immediately, logged. On the bridge, the captain glances once at the repeater display. The contacts are still there, still close, still not escalating. He nods once, no orders follow. The carrier's air wing remains silent. No launch sequence, no alert posture, no airborne presence added to the picture. From above, that absence speaks loudly. The F-16s complete their arc and begin moving ahead again, increasing separation slowly, as if deciding how much distance is enough. They remain within visual range, but the geometry has changed. The direct line is gone. Inside CIC, the tracks stretch. Velocity remains high, but closure rate drops to 0. Contacts opening. Copy. The internal posture holds for several more minutes. Systems continue to listen. Cameras continue to record. Nothing is assumed to be over until it is well past. Finally, the aircraft push farther ahead, climbing to a safer altitude, their noise fading into the background hum of wind and sea. The carrier does not acknowledge the departure. No announcement is made shipwide. No commentary follows. The flight deck returns to normal tempo. Tow tractors move again. A plane captain resumes his checklist exactly where he left off. Inside CIC, the last data packets are time-stamped and archived. The second move is complete. No confrontation. No escalation, just a carrier that refused to blink, and 2 aircraft that now know it. At 14:36 local time, the carrier's sensors stop reacting and start harvesting. The aircraft are still present, farther now, higher. But the encounter has shifted phase. What began as proximity becomes pattern. What looked like intimidation becomes behavior. Inside the Combat Information Center, attention moves away from the tactical display and toward the margins. Side panels, secondary readouts, subsystems that do not speak unless spoken to. The F-16s settle into a loose forward trail, 5 to 7 miles ahead of the ship. Their altitude stabilizes just under 1,000 feet, low enough to be noticed, high enough to be survivable. They are no longer threatening collision. They are fishing. The ship lets them. Electronic support measures detect a short burst, barely a whisper, on a known search frequency, not a lock, not a cue, just a brush across the carrier's electromagnetic skin. It is enough? Emission detected. Low power. Time-stamped. Logged. Correlated. The aircraft's radar sweep is not aggressive, but it is careless. Too wide. Too open. The kind of scan used when a pilot believes he is in control of the moment. On the carrier, nobody interrupts him. Instead, multiple sensors converge. Radar returns align with infrared signatures. Exhaust plumes are measured for temperature fluctuation. Control surface deflections are tracked frame by frame. The closer an aircraft flies, the louder it becomes, not in sound, but in data. The F-16 lead adjusts pitch slightly, correcting for turbulence. It's instinctive, muscle memory. But that micro-adjustment is captured, compared against known profiles. Filed. The wingman drifts outward again, increasing lateral separation. He's watching the ship, waiting for a response that doesn't come. That absence is intentional. The carrier does not illuminate the aircraft. No fire control radar spikes. No visible cue that might trigger defensive maneuvering. The pilots are allowed to behave naturally. Natural behavior reveals everything. Another brief power increase, another thermal bloom, another set of numbers added to a growing library. Inside CIC, the mood is not tense. It is focused. Analysts are not waiting for something to happen. They are letting it happen. Every aircraft broadcasts its story whether it means to or not. Speed changes, climb rates, preferred angles. The way it enters and exits turns. The delay between input and response. All of it speaks. The aircraft make another shallow adjustment, this time angling slightly closer to the carrier's forward quarter. Not enough to provoke, just enough to remind. The ship remains steady. Ship maintaining course and speed. That confirmation is repeated periodically, not for reassurance, but for the record. The F-16's radios flicker with brief internal traffic. Nothing intelligible, nothing sustained. But the cadence matters. Timing between transmissions, power levels, channel selection, logged. The carrier's own emissions stay quiet. Passive systems dominate. The ship listens without speaking, turning the encounter into a one-sided conversation. Above deck, sailors feel only a distant rumble now. More background than presence. The sky is wide again. The jets are just shapes against it. Inside CIC, they are anything but small. At 1440, the lead aircraft dips slightly, no more than 50 feet, then corrects. A human moment, a reminder that even rehearsed intimidation carries risk. That dip generates a new set of measurements. Angle of attack, control authority, response lag, captured. The aircraft have now been airborne near the carrier for over 10 minutes. That is an eternity in data terms. Enough time to see habits emerge. Enough time to see what is practiced and what is improvised. The wingman rolls his wings once, a smooth, deliberate motion. It looks casual. It isn't. The roll exposes the aircraft's profile to multiple sensors at once. Radar cross-section changes. Infrared signature shifts. Sunlight glints off surfaces not normally visible. It is the clearest snapshot yet. Inside CIC, no one reacts outwardly, but several consoles light with confirmation markers. The carrier has what it needs. Still, the ship does not end the encounter. It allows the aircraft to decide when to disengage. That choice matters. The F-16s begin a gradual climb. Not abrupt, not coordinated. One climbs first. The other follows seconds later. The timing difference is noted. As altitude increases, emissions drop. The aircraft go quieter, more disciplined now. The pilots have realized something has changed. They cannot see it, but they feel it. The carrier remains unchanged, still moving forward, still silent, still predictable. By the time the aircraft reach 1,500 feet, their posture is no longer assertive. It is cautious. The passes are over. The performance complete. Inside CIC, the final data packets are secured, cross-referenced, stored. The trap was never sprung in a single moment. It closed slowly, invisibly, while the aircraft believed they were in control. No warnings issued, no maneuvers forced. Just two jets that came close to send a message, and left having given one away. At 14:43 local time, the geometry tightens again, not dramatically, not suddenly, just enough to matter. The lead aircraft levels off at 1,200 feet and eases back toward the carrier's projected track. The movement is subtle, 5 degrees of heading change, a few seconds of sustained alignment, but inside the Combat Information Center, it redraws the picture. Contact altering vector, CPA decreasing. Closest point of approach calculations update in real time. The numbers are not dangerous yet, but they are moving in the wrong direction. This is where encounters either dissolve or harden. On the flight deck, the deck officer raises his hand again. Not high, just visible. The signal is understood instantly. Non-essential movement stops. No one runs. No one rushes. The carrier's silhouette remains unchanged against the water. Bow steady. Wake clean. Speed constant. Inside CIC, posture sharpens without escalating. Sensors tighten focus. Passive systems continue to dominate. But margins shrink. Maintain current ROE. The reminder is procedural, not cautionary. The F-16's nose dips slightly, then steadies. The aircraft is not descending aggressively, but it is no longer disengaging either. The wingman hangs back, offset, watching both ship and lid. This is the line. One more move inward, and the encounter changes character. One misread intention, and the record stops being observational. The carrier does not move to preempt it. Instead, something small changes. A surface-mounted system slews a few degrees. Not fast, not fully. Just enough to be seen by anyone looking for it. A visible acknowledgement without activation. It is not a threat. It is awareness made tangible. Inside CIC, that movement is logged as well. Not because it matters tactically, but because it completes the picture. Every action on both sides now has context. The aircraft reacts. The lead F-16 hesitates, not in speed. Its velocity remains constant, but in attitude. The nose lifts a fraction. The turn rate pauses. That hesitation lasts less than 2 seconds. It is still visible. The carrier's radios remain silent. No challenge, no warning, no broadcast. Silence here is not absence. It is restraint. The F-16's pilot makes his decision in that quiet. He rolls right, just enough to widen separation, then increases altitude by 200 feet. The move is conservative, calculated, an exit ramp taken without announcing it. The wingman mirrors the adjustment a moment later, climbing and widening in a smooth, practiced motion. The formation reforms, not for another pass, but for departure. Inside CIC, the CPA numbers widen again. Time to closest approach stretches, then collapses into irrelevance. Contacts opening. Copy. The deck officer lowers his hand. Movement resumes in small increments. A crewman takes a step. Another follows. The deck breathes again. Above, the aircraft continue their climb, pushing into thinner air, their sound fading back into the background. They are still present, still visible, but no longer pressing. The carrier never acknowledges the change. No course correction, no speed adjustment, no visible signal of relief or dominance. That matters too. Inside CIC, analysts watch the retreat carefully. How quickly the aircraft disengage. Whether they turn away cleanly or linger. Whether they transmit during the withdrawal. They transmit once, briefly, internal traffic only, logged. At 1447, the F-16s bank away from the carrier's forward arc entirely, committing to a new heading that will take them clear of the ship's path. Their altitude increases steadily now, 2,000 feet, then 3. The line has been respected. The carrier remains exactly where it was, doing exactly what it was doing before the aircraft arrived. The ocean closes the space behind her bow, as if nothing unusual occurred. Inside CIC, posture eases, but recording continues. No one assumes the encounter is over until it is well past. When the tracks finally stretch far enough that geometry no longer matters, systems begin to stand down. Not all at once, not dramatically. One by one, quietly. No one marks the moment out loud. The fourth move ends the same way the first began, without words. A boundary was tested. A response was offered without escalation. And the line, once drawn, did not need to be crossed to be understood. At 1452 local time, the air picture simplifies. Two fast-moving tracks remain on the outer edge of the display, climbing steadily, opening range with each update. Their vectors no longer intersect the carrier's projected path. The geometry that once mattered now dissolves into empty space. Contacts fading. Copy. Inside the Combat Information Center, posture shifts for the last time. Not to readiness, but to closure. Systems do not shut off. They return to baseline. Recording continues, but the urgency is gone. The encounter is ending on its own terms. On the flight deck, operations return to full tempo. A tow tractor rolls forward. A plane captain resumes a checklist without looking up. The deck does not acknowledge what just passed over it. That is not indifference. That is normalcy restored by discipline. Above, the F-16s push higher, their profiles shrinking against the sky. No final pass, no flare, no gesture of defiance or concession, just distance. The carrier does not follow them with its eyes. Inside CIC, analysts begin the quiet work. Logs are checked for continuity. Timestamps are verified. Sensor streams are cross-referenced to ensure nothing is missing. Nothing out of sequence. This is where encounters actually conclude. Every second of proximity has already been captured. Radar behavior, altitude changes, thermal signatures, radio cadence, formation discipline. None of it is discussed in dramatic terms. It doesn't need to be. The record speaks for itself. At 1456, the aircraft tracks merge with background traffic. Their unique signatures blur into the broader air picture. They are no longer a factor. Tracks lost. Copy. Maintain standard watch. No celebration follows. no commentary. The carrier continues on her original heading, cutting clean water, her wake unbroken. In the bridge log, the event is summarized in precise language: time, position, number of aircraft, altitudes, closest point of approach, duration. Nothing about intent. Nothing about emotion. Below deck, the data is already being packaged. Not for headlines, for reference, and for a comparison. For the next time something similar happens, and it will. Every encounter adds to a larger pattern. Every pattern sharpens understanding. That is how advantage accumulates without confrontation. The flight deck now sounds the way it always does. Wind, engines, voices carried short distances and lost. The sky is empty again. From the outside, nothing appears to have changed. Inside the ship, everything that mattered has already been secured. The carrier never fired, never warned, never deviated. Yet by the time the aircraft left, the imbalance was clear. One side came close to be seen. The other stayed still and saw everything. As the horizon settles back into its familiar line, the moment passes into record. Another entry. Another data set. Another quiet confirmation of how these encounters end when restraint holds. The carrier presses on, unchanged, her mission uninterrupted. And somewhere beyond the curvature of the sea, two aircraft fly home carrying nothing but fuel, burn, and memory, while the ship they approached keeps something far more enduring without firing a single round.